effort properly focused. And not only am I a former writer for the U.S. Army Recruiting Service, but a former corporate attorney. And if you think you're going to go into the files of corporate charters, in most cases, the charters are malleable and amendable, and I can sense your energy, I can sense your commitment. And I don't think corporations are forever, and I'm not as pessimistic as you about our ability to match the corporations through organizations. And one should note what has happened with the media, even in the last 3 or 4 years. It is not a constant. Riding on the back of the consumer movement and how corporations have let us down, not only big pharma and big auto companies, but there is an undercurrent present in the country that I think provides a good fertile ground to grow lobbying movements without looking at corporate charters. And the picture of personhood in 5 years and 10 years, and the picture of their power over your congressperson and your senator could be very, very different. It's not a hopeless picture by any means. So I think you're hitting something that is very vital. My suggestion would be to focus your efforts, think strategically, and I think it's less a specific disagreement, David, than I think we're philosophically agreed. But I do think the opportunity for success and the likelihood for success in a political effort, I don't measure it at all in the theory of a just war, but the theory of just lobbying, I think it is very important to seize the day, to seize the right candidate, to seize the right race. And I come from a state, Michael Fisher does too, where we have Bernie Sanders. And if you would have guessed 20 years ago that the Brooklyn-born mayor of Burlington, Vermont would be a sole, lone voice for justice in the U.S. Senate, I would have asked what it is you've been taking. It is not just Vermont. It is not just Bernie Sanders. There are opportunities. It was strategy, it was opportunity, it was people, like all of you saying out there. I'm quite an optimist, actually. I leave this meeting as an even greater optimist.
I would just like to point out that sometimes we get wrapped around just thinking it's just Congress, and it's all their responsibility. But you know, the Guard Home campaign is about state legislation, and so you do have a bigger voice with your state legislator. So I would encourage you, if you don't know who your state legislator is, find out who it is. And you think about, too, this thing started very humble beginnings from a small state with one lone representative, and now we have almost 24 states with campaigns going on. We have, 8 states that have actually introduced legislation. And how many? 10. So when you think about that, and you think about the fact that in Oregon we only meet every other year for 4 months, and every state has its different rules, and you think about how far we've come, and it's gotten national press, and we're having conversations about this. So you can make a difference, maybe a bigger impact on your state and local level than fighting Congress.
Okay, we have more questions. Great. I'll start right here.
I wanted to respond a little bit to some of the ideas that David had and to expand on them. We're in a period of what I would refer to as the last stage of monopoly capital, which effectively is fascism. And we're tremendously militarized. The United States now is a battle space, as they call it in the military. And it has its own military command now called NORTHCOM. We also have laws that militarize otherwise civilian functions. There's been a constant breakdown of posse comitatus. And there's now a push to federalize all response in emergencies and to override even the local guard authority. That was what caused the 3-day delay in Katrina. If you don't know that, it was that Blanco refused to allow Bush to totally federalize the situation, which had not been done before and isn't needed. But then they said, well, if you won't let us run it, we're not coming in. And they also now have linked a military response not only to threats of terrorism or bombs, nuclear war, those kind of things, but they've linked it to natural disasters and pandemic diseases can trigger. And Obama's done nothing to change these authorities. In fact, he helped draft the Senate bills that relate to them. I think we've been engaged in about a 35-year debate between Mahatma Gandhi and John Wayne that hasn't taken us anywhere. It's left the Pentagon intact and growing. The presidents come and go. The Defense Intelligence Agency, which most of you probably never even heard of, controls 85% of the intelligence budget. It's the real spy agency, that's why it's not in the news. It carries out what the CIA thinks up. We've militarized all kinds of functions within the society, even to the point of having the military come in and mentor in the schools or do dropout recovery programs. I mean, one thing after the other falls under, a military operation. I think that part of the problem is that we have not, and some of these movements start to address that, we have not taken the military as our own. And it is our military, whether we like it or not. It acts in our name. We suffer the consequences of it. And I think that we need to start a campaign for a democratic military that reflects the democratic values of the society in our military, which is probably the worst and least democratic military in the world. Every other industrialized nation allows unions in the military. You go to prison for even proposing a union on the civilian or the military side. It's the last industrialized nation that still has an internal military judicial system. You go AWOL in France, you get a fine from a civilian court. And in England, and you may not know this because your topic is who decides about war, and in other societies, when a war is declared, the individual troops can decide whether they will participate in it. They're not discharged from the military for so deciding, they're just reassigned. And ultimately, Hemingway said, if you want to have a war, don't ask the infantry and don't ask the dead. And ultimately, even if the people decided to go to war, the troops should have a right to decide whether they'll participate in it. I'm not as convinced, having grown up in the 60s and that when the draft was in, that Congress people, I know that the class structure worked very effectively through the selective service system. To give you one example, at the height of the poverty draft, 36% of the armed forces were black. At the height of the selective service system, 55% of the draftees were black. It was more systematically racist even than the poverty. And sons were considered to have to go off. In fact, up till World War I, the sons of the British ruling class, because after World War I, the weapons took the glory out of war, but up to that point, that was their honor, that was their manhood to go and lead the troops and charge around on their horse, and be part of it. But the sons were expendable. I mean, Dick Gregory used to joke that if the draft came for your son, you'd pat him on the back and say, that's your duty, boy, and if they came for your dog, you'd complain. You can't take poopy, So I don't know that does it, but I think the answer is neither a poverty draft nor a paper draft. The answer is to have a truly voluntary military that you can get into and then get back out of, because right now it's like going into a mental institution. You can check in voluntarily, but somebody else decides whether you get to check out. Okay? And, I think there are millions and millions of people in this country that know what's wrong with the U.S. military, that have been through it. And we're not tapping their voices. But it seems to me that taking our military back is a first step. to doing anything about this.
Okay,
And,
thank you very much. First up there in the corner.
So I have a couple real quick questions. For David, I really like your ideas. I was curious, how many times have you been arrested? And when did they decide they're going to keep you in there?
Do they charge?
Are you considering this?
Does it cost money?
No, it doesn't.
My other quick question was for Benson. You enlisted people. What turned you around to be on the other side of the fence?
Enlisting people.
Okay, wait, we want
Yeah,
to take one.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's okay. We
Yeah,
want to
take
get
them
the
in order.
questions.
I'm out of order.
We're at 3:15, and okay, so we have two more, and that's it. Sorry, because it's three. Yeah.
Okay, just very quickly. How many times, and I've been keeping up with the Congress critters, how many times does the House pass a bill only to have it go to the Senate and get kicked down, and people don't even go near it? I mean, I know we could concentrate on the House because they seem more sensible somehow. I don't know why I feel that way, but then the Senate just blows it out of the water.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, this is for any of you. How do you guys feel about having the U.S. military or NATO be involved in peace enforcement operations and intervening in genocides and using the military to stop that? How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I think, Ben, do you think we could go another 15 minutes?
I think we should cut it to
Okay.
5 probably, just because, and I'll say this just because I know that one of our speakers, John Bonifaz, who's
Right.
an incredible guy, we're cutting into his time and he has to leave.
All right, so we'll answer those 3 questions, and that's it for now. So anyone want to take those issues and questions, David?
You think the House is